Now, before I get this podcast started, let's just say I knew Armchair Detective was full of it from the minute he opened his mouth. When I used to type in Chris Watts on YouTube, the algorithm was different then. But when I used to type in Chris Watts on YouTube and he would come up, I would sometimes click on him, and I would give him 20 seconds and then I would click off. I just knew that he was full of BS. And, we've gotten to the stage where he's still here and, lawsuits, the talk of lawsuits, the talk of having him sued, none of that has really worked out because he's still around. And if anything, he's spread his lies even wider. He's spread his deceit even wider. And the misconceptions that he's been spreading should not be legally allowed as far as I'm concerned. If you put up a video on COVID on YouTube, for example, and you spread misinformation, that video will be taken down. I've seen it happen. There was a video once that got millions of views within a few days, and because it's, the video spread misinformation, it was taken down. That's what I think should have happened to AD a very long time ago, because he spreads misinformation. So, Armchair Detective versus the Rzuceks Shenan's family, the victim's family. Now, I don't know how many of you know who Armchair Detective is. Most of my subscribers will know who Armchair Detective is. He has been very active on the scene when it comes to the Chris Watts case. I mean, basically, his entire YouTube channel or channels has been built around the Watts case. And for the past 2 years, or at least a year and a half, there has been an active campaign to try and get him off YouTube. The family, Shenan's family, the Rzuceks, are very, very angry with him. They're fed up with him because of his conspiracy theories, because they see his manipulation. They see how he's used the Watts case to make a name for himself and to basically scam millions, scam money out of people, basically. Now, at first, I didn't mind the Armchair Detective. I thought, British guy, doing the Watts case, that's okay. It didn't bother me at first. But over time, just like the Rzuceks, I started to see how he was just coming up with these crazy theories to get attention, using Nicole Kessinger as a scapegoat, because a large majority of his audience are females, middle-aged women, women in their late 40s, early 50s, who don't like Nicole Kessinger. And in actual fact, the way he has manipulated his subscribers and the way he's sold his conspiracy theories is very clever. He's tapped into a niche audience who buys his theories, and he's tapped into these women who absolutely abhor Nicole Kessinger and want to see her go down. They think she's involved. And I think, like me, the family, the victim's family, Shenan's family, see how he manipulates. And it's all for monetary gain. Armchair Detective said that there were going to be arrests very, very soon. And that never happened. Sherilyn Cadle came on his show a few months ago and said there's going to be other arrests. That's never happened. And I'm telling you right now, there aren't going to be any more arrests in the Watts case. There's no mystery. There's no cover-up. The Watts case is over. No one else is going to be arrested. Whether you think somebody else was involved or not, everyone has the right to believe what they want to believe. But there are no more arrests coming. But AD keeps plugging the conspiracy theory that there were other people involved, several other people involved, because that's what his audience want to hear. That's what they tune in night after night for. And he's scamming people, basically. He's conning people into believing these theories, and he's taking their money. He's taking their money on Patreon. and he's taking their money for this so-called book, Shadow Man, that he claims to be releasing very soon. And the family see his manipulation. The family see that he's making money off of their misery. And I absolutely understand, and I am with them on their pain. I'm with them on their, they've just had enough of him, and I've had enough of him. I've had enough of AD. I've had enough of his rubbish. I really have. And I want him off YouTube. And I think he should have been taken off YouTube a long time ago. However, I will give him this. Not only is he very good at what he does, he's very good at his manipulation. He is also very good at playing the victim, which earns the sympathy of these, middle-aged women. But he's also very good at gaslighting. He's an exceptional gaslighter, like all narcissists are. They gaslight. They distort reality. And that's what he does with his conspiracy theories. He distorts reality. But I will give him this. There are other creators that have blamed Shanann for what happened. We all know Kim Kaufman put out videos demonstrating that Shanann did it. And AD complains that they attack him, who has never blamed Shanann for doing it, but they're not attacking someone like Kim Kaufman or Miss Mensa, who point the fingers, at Shanann. And I'll give AD that. I'll give AD that, because if it were me, I would be just as angry at someone like Kim Kaufman. Because Kim Kaufman has actually demonstrated that she believes Shanann did it. And the Rzuceks, they don't really talk about her. It's really AD that they have a real problem with. But I think with AD, they're just sick and tired of him using conspiracy theories, manipulation. They're tired of him trying to make every penny out of this Watts case as he possibly can. And everything is a money-making venture for AD. He has a failed restaurant business. If you want to type in Alan Binnicum, you can look at Company's House and you can see that he has many failed businesses. So this is the only thing that he's been successful at. And he's always bragging about how many the audience he has and his viewership and all that kind of stuff. You would think the way he talks about himself that he's the biggest person on YouTube, and he's not. However, he is very good at what he does, and there's no question he has built a large audience. But the large audience that he's built around the Watts case is all based on virtually all of what he says are lies. So the fact that he said that there were going to be other arrests were lies. The fact that he said that he's helping the family with appeals were lies, because Chris Watts is not eligible for an appeal. The fact that he said that he was helping the family with a 35C is all a lie. And the 35C would have flopped anyway. He really has no grounds for 35C. He not only did he confess, but he led investigators. He led law enforcement to those bodies. So Chris Watts, his goose is cooked. He's never getting released. But, the family have just had enough of his BS. So the Rzuceks recently appeared on Bam Bam channel, talking about how much they just want Alan Binnicum and his sidekick Bubbles. I'm not even going to go into her very much, because I just think that she's just trying to use the Watts case as an opportunity. If it's going to benefit her in some way, she's going to use it as an opportunity. She doesn't care about the Rzucek family. She doesn't care about their feelings, and neither does Armchair Detective. He is continuing to gaslight. Any opportunity that the Armchair Detective has to gaslight, he will use it. So anyway, the Rzuceks appeared on Bam Bam's channel doing an interview, denouncing everything Armchair Detective says. They were very angry, and they made it very clear that they've had enough of him and want him to stop, which I understand. And Sandra Rzucek said something about, decide, do you want to go into heaven, or do you want to, continue down on this, on this path of, just destruction with AD. But, I understand Sandra, she's a woman of faith. And I understand her point, but Armchair Detective doesn't care about religion. He doesn't care about faith. He's not thinking about whether or not he's going to get into the kingdom of heaven. He's thinking about here, now, how he can continue to use the Watts case to make money. That's all he's interested in. He doesn't care about anyone's feelings. He's a narcissist. He's an egotist. Constantly inflating his ego with, talking himself up. He really doesn't care that he's hurting the Rzuceks family. But, the Rzuceks are very, the resentment against him, and I think it's more than just resentment, but it has been simmering for a very, very long time. And despite their talk of lawsuits and suing him, nothing has happened. He's been able to somehow manipulate and propel himself to an even wider audience. He's propelled himself to a wider audience than even before, because there were times when he did have strikes, and there were times when it seemed like one of his channels was going to be removed, and then somehow he was able to maneuver himself out of that again. I don't want him on YouTube. I think he spreads lies and misinformation. Sick and tired of his narcissism and his egotism and constantly talking about how wonderful and great he is. He's a scammer. He's a con artist. And, he's just been spreading lies and misinformation for far, far too long. And I do feel a great deal of compassion for Shanann's family, because they've been through absolute hell. Not only have they lost their family, that they've said all they have is memories, and people talk about them as if they're nothing. And I understand that. The fascination with the Watts case continues, and it's not going to end. Unfortunately, it's a phenomenon on YouTube. And I think it's a phenomenon for many reasons, but unfortunately, I think the Rzuceks family really have a huge task on their hands to bring him down. Because for some reason he's still standing, for some reason, despite all the misinformation that he spreads and all the lies that he spreads. But I'm very, very, very much hoping, he's 66 now? I'm very much hoping that karma will get him in the end. And, I want him off YouTube just as much as they do. So even though I knew that Armchair Detective was full of crap from the moment he opened his mouth, from the first time I heard him open his mouth, I thought, no big deal. There's lots of people on YouTube who speak a lot of rubbish. There's a lot of people on YouTube who don't talk sense. There's a lot of people on YouTube who are not my cup of tea. And so I just dismissed it, thinking that he would just disappear, eventually. Even though I know he was full of it from the very beginning, it didn't bother me at first. But, obviously time has gone on and he becomes more manipulative, tells more lies. And one of the ways he gaslights the Rzuceks is that he will do a video or a live talking about how they've slandered him and dragged his name through the mud. And in turn, he plays the victim, and that makes his subs turn against the Rzuceks. And you'll often see comments like, why don't they want to find out the truth? Why don't they want justice? If it were me, I would want full justice. I would want to know everything that happened. The truth of the matter is the Rzuceks don't buy Armchair Detectives' conspiracy theories that other people are involved. And for me personally, it has nothing to do with the discovery. I have never even looked at the discovery. I'm not interested in the discovery. There's always going to be things that are not in a discovery. All I need to know is that those kids were put in oil tanks. He was having an affair leading up to the murders. He was pulling away from Shanann leading up to the murders. And if you understand narcissism and narcissists, they will often, before they finally discard you, they will often show signs that they're no longer interested. So giving Shanann the silent treatment, not showing her affection, not wanting to be romantically involved with her, the affair. All of these things showed that Chris Watts was going to discard Shanann at some point. And he was also gaslighting her as well, saying he didn't know what he wanted or he wasn't sure how he felt. No one could have imagined that he would discard her in such a terrible way. Most narcissists don't murder people when they discard them. Murder is the extreme form of being discarded by a narcissist. And most narcissists, they don't do that, especially not so brutally. But him murdering Shanann, murdering the children, that was the final discard. And it just so happens that his version of the final discard was very brutal. So yeah, like I said, I don't believe that Chris Watts would have shared what he was thinking or what he was going to do with anyone, because I think he's a secretive person. I think it was all in his head. There's no way he would have told people or got people involved in fear of them telling somebody or going to the police with that information. The only other person that could have been involved in this is Nicole Kessinger. And like I said many times, I haven't seen the evidence against her. And, AD's theory and AD's subscribers believe that there was, one minute they're saying that they believe him that there's going to be an arrest, and the next minute they're saying that there was a payoff on a cover-up. Well, you can't have two stories. Either there's going to be an arrest, which hasn't happened and is not going to happen, or there was a cover-up. And if you believe there was a cover-up and you want to present that idea, well, where is the evidence? Where is the evidence that there was a payoff? Where are the receipts that there was a payoff? And as for this Bubbles woman, she is, I would say she's AD's latest sidekick, and he's had quite a few, and they're usually female. And they're usually female sidekicks, middle-aged, that he usually has by his side for a while until he gets ready to discard them. I don't know if that's going to happen with Bubbles, because she seems to be here to stay for now, or at least for now. But, he's had other sidekicks, female sidekicks, who he uses, when they're useful to him, when they buy his conspiracy theories, when they, when they stand by him, and when he finds them useful, he keeps them around. And then when they're no longer useful to him, he usually discards these female sidekicks. So Bubbles is his latest sidekick. And listening to her speak, it's very, very eerie. She's very manipulative. I see the manipulation in her. So her and Armchair Detective have very similar traits. And she's kind of soft-spoken and patronizing the way she speaks. And she's also very self-righteous, constantly talking about how she's a great person and how she believes in God. And she kind of seems to use religion to make an example of her being a great person. And she was saying, how dare the Rzuceks call this guy to warn him, this so-called publisher that they called, to warn him not to have any involvement with AD and his book. And how dare they ruin his day, and how nasty the Rzuceks are for doing that. I mean, this Bubbles woman is a very, very manipulative woman. But it'll be interesting to see how long AD keeps her around, because he's one of these people who discards people when they're no longer useful. He did the same thing with, I think, a woman named Maureen. And often what will happen once the person gets discarded and they get the narcissistic injury, then they will go on, create channels and go on to do, make nasty comments and statements about him. That's happened quite a lot with AD. When he discards someone, that person becomes very, that person gets a narcissistic injury, gets very angry, and starts making videos about what a nasty person Armchair Detective is. But they were also pally with them and nice with him when everything was going fine with him. They never made any nasty comments about him, despite all the things that he was doing. So there is a very, not only is Armchair Detective manipulative, not only does he lie, not only is he a con artist, but the people around him who feed his ego, they're also quite manipulative. So there's a lot of manipulation circling around Armchair Detective. I was talking to one of the people who made comments under my videos, and she said that she would choose Scott Reich over Armchair Detective any day, because I was saying I had reservations about Scott Reich. There are not many reservations about Scott Reich. Scott Reich is far more honest and far more fact-based than Armchair Detective will ever be. And he's got more fans and more views than Armchair Detective has without spinning these ridiculous conspiracy theories. But the way Armchair Detective talks about himself and his viewership is like he's the biggest star on YouTube, which he's not. But he's done very well with his channel. There's no question. He has a large viewership, and he has a large female fan base, middle-aged female fan base that buy into his nonsense. And it doesn't matter what you say about Armchair Detective. There's always going to be, for every person who he discards, there's a new person to replace them. For every person who leaves him or unsubscribes to him or whatever, there's always a new person that's going to take the other person's place. So, he's always got new people to kind of be on his side and recruit. He's always got new people that he can use, and they are very often women, and Bubbles is filling those shoes right now for the moment. It'll be interesting to see how long she'll stick around.